There's this tendency in relationships, especially close relationships, to insist people be how we need them to be rather than who they are. Okay. And it's natural, I mean, there's, we have ideas. The closer the relationship, the more this is so, right? We all have stories and scripts and fantasies about how various relationships should be, right? So our significant other relationship, it's like we have stories about how that relationship should be, and of course how the other person, how our significant other should be. Okay. Same, same with familial relationships. How a brother should be, how a sister should be, how our parents should be, how our kids should be, how our boss should be, how our best friend should be. All of these, how our extended family member should be, how the president should be. We have these ideas about how they should be. And a lot of times, it's like we're expecting them to be like us. We're expecting them to be in some form or another. We want them to be in a way that fits in our comfort zone. So it's consistent with how that relationship should be. Okay, so it's totally natural. And I'm going to make the point that this is very, it can be very limiting, that we're kind of cheating ourselves in a way when we do this. Okay, so of course the opposite would be letting go of how we need someone to be, or I've sometimes called it allowing people to be who they are. And extended from that, I've talked about trusting people to be who they are. All things that have practices and skills that have a tremendous amount of freedom, to the extent we're able to do these things. So let me give you an example from my own life. Okay, so I have this friend, and he's a lifelong friend, and he's a really cool human being, and he is more free-spirited than I am. I'm a little more of a planner, and you do this and you stand for this, and he's quite a bit more spontaneous. Okay, and he's a free spirit. And ironically, that's one of the reasons that I like him and love him, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm drawn to him, is because he is free-spirited and fun and spontaneous. It kind of is fun and exciting for me to be around someone like that. And yet, there's a tendency for me to project, the way I need him to be. Okay, so one of the things that in the past has driven me crazy is making plans with him. Okay, so we'll make plans, and I'll say, I'm like planning my calendar out at least a week ahead, if not longer, on some things, especially if it's big things, right? Like Thanksgiving or a trip or this. It's like I'm planning out weeks. Okay, and my friend apparently does not really do this. It was really funny because I was venting with my girlfriend at the time. This must have been, I don't know, a year ago or so. And I was just saying this, he drives me crazy. It's just like, we said we were going to do this, and then we were doing this. And then she was so sweet. She just looked at me and she said, Mike, I don't think he really plans that far ahead. and it was just like, oh, and I knew that, but it was like this reminder. It just is like, oh, so I'm expecting him to be more like me and to be a planner, and he's not a planner. So, so I can just let go of that, and the amount of freedom that I can get, I can save myself all kinds of angst and judgment and frustration, and and that if I just he's not gonna plan like I plan. Maybe sometimes he does, but maybe probably not. So there's like so much freedom. And then the upside of this is when we can let go of how we need them to be, how I need them to be. When we can let go of how we need them to be, I guess I could say, then only then do we really get to appreciate who they are. Like only then do we really get to see them as they are. Do we only get to experience them as they really are? Until then, we're kind of ripping them ourselves off. We're like putting them in this box of how we need them to be. And we're so focused on having them to be like me or to be how we need them to be. Our experience is, we get an experience is like, oh, they're not me. That's who they are to us. They're like someone that's not me. Rather than this beautiful human being who they are, and the diversity and the richness that we get to discover who a new human being, who this human being is. Until then, we can't even see who they are because we have them in a box of they should be this and they're not. They suck. They should be this and they're not. But when we let go of the box and just say, okay, now who is this? It's like pure discovery. Like, now who is this person? We're like our significant other, our family member, our friend, like a new person. We're like, who is this person? And have this pure discovery. It's just like, wow, they are very different than I am. It doesn't always make sense to me, but boy, that's kind of cool. What an interesting choice. They choose to do their yard this way, and I would have never done that. They choose to do Thanksgiving this way. Boy, I would have never done that. And it just is like, but that's really interesting. So you can see this inquisitive mind that I sometimes refer to of pure discovery is really helpful in this journey. So rather, we're letting go of who I need them to be, who I think they are, who all of that stuff, who I assumed that they were, who I'm saying they were from the past. So they were always this way. Letting go of all that stuff. Just let it all go. Now, today, who is this person? What are they saying to me? Let's understand, their dance and how they see life, and to be fascinated by it, and to enjoy the diversity. Like, have it be fascinating that they are doing things totally different than I do. Let it be fascinating that this person, that someone's not planning and just goes with what they feel like doing in that given moment. It's like, wow, that is interesting. Maybe I could bring some of that into my life. Maybe I could loosen up a little bit if I didn't, if I was a little more adaptable and flexible, and I could a little more spontaneity in my life. That's so fascinating that they are that way. And then we can celebrate who they are. And we can have who I am interact with who they are. And we get all this richness, sometimes in the diversity of like, we're very different, but we're having this respectful, loving relationship with each other. And we're so different. Now, sometimes it may be more difference than someone that we're going to live together or be in a intimate relationship with. That, we do need maybe some common ground to head in the same direction enough to make some of these relationships work. But a lot of this is with acquaintances and friends and family members that we only see twice a year. A lot of it's that. And so like, we can just get together now. Who is this person? Like, who is my brother? I always assumed he was this way, but who is he now? Who is he at this age? Who is he that now his kids are raised? And we can discover and just say, fascinating, how cool that he is this way. I celebrate that he is the way he is and not who I've always needed him to be. So much freedom, so much richness, that we are gifting ourselves just by having a different perspective, just a different approach, and allowing someone to be who they are. and then we can share who we are. So anyway, that is my video for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing week as we get close to summer. Hopefully the weather's starting to get nicer. It is here finally, and that's very happy. So, and as you go through your week, just maybe try this on a little bit. Notice how you need people to be would be a place to start, right? It's just like, notice it's like, I'm uncomfortable because the person's this way. That's the place to start. It's like, I would be more comfortable if they were this way. It's like, okay, but they're not. So let's explore how they are. And then I'll go through the adjustments. Maybe it puts me through some changes that they're not the way I would like them to be. I've got to reshuffle the deck. I've got to figure out this relationship more, figure out who I am more, and why I need them to be something that they're not, which is often where this leads to. Beautiful self-inquiry, like, why do I need them to be something that they're not? That is so much freedom in that inquiry. That can take some time, and it can be very humbling and put you through a few changes, but really powerful changes and very liberating changes. So anyway, as you have your week, maybe ask that question, notice when you're needing someone to be something, it's just like, oh, I can let that go. Now, who are they? Who are they in this experience? Who are they now? And then really celebrate that. So anyway, I will see you in a week.